We can now speak to entertainment journalist Josh Rom. Josh, a pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you for joining us. First of all, Diddy was cleared of 2 of the major charges yesterday, but he was also denied bail. Lots of twists and turns in that case. Are you surprised?
I'm not particularly surprised that he was denied bail because, as you said there in the introduction, the 2 counts that he was convicted of, guilty of transportation to engage in prostitution, these are 2 very serious crimes under the Mann Act, both of which carry a sentence of a maximum of 10 years. So it's looking more than likely that that Sean Diddy Combs, otherwise known as P. Diddy, will serve jail time, significant jail time. However, when it came to his acquittal of the other counts, that also didn't surprise me because all the way through the trial, we saw the evidence from his ex-girlfriend, Cassie Ventura. We've all seen that video of Diddy engaging in domestic violence in that hotel corridor. And the defense's case was yes, Sean Diddy Combs, he might be a bad man, he might even be an immoral man, but when it comes to racketeering, the most serious charge, that's about a criminal enterprise to commit crimes including sex trafficking, kidnapping, drugging, and obstruction of justice as well. So yes, whilst he might be a bad man and has committed crimes in other ways, such as domestic violence, were his freak-offs a criminal enterprise? And for the prosecution to prove that, that was always going to be an uphill battle.
Yeah, absolutely. Good point. He's been in the same facility since last September, and he'll actually remain there until sentencing, which is at the beginning of October. That's over a year, Josh, that he's been sort of locked up. So presumably, what time would get taken off his sentence? You said he could get a considerable sentence.
Yeah, so we're looking at 2 counts with a maximum sentence of up to 10 years each. So, of course, the time that he spent on remand will come out of that time. And it's looking likely that each of those 2 counts will be served concurrently rather than consecutively, unless there are necessarily aggravating factors there, more aggravating factors there. But we're still, I think, looking at least a substantial sentence. I know a lot of lawyers are saying 2 years at the very minimum, perhaps 5 years, maybe even 10 years there when it comes, because he's been convicted of two different acts, 2 different counts. So we're still looking at a substantial jail term. But yes, the time that he served on remand will be deducted, I think, from the final sentence. However, that still doesn't take away the fact as well that P. Diddy is now a convicted felon.
And what does this result mean for the people who came out and spoke out against Diddy? Like you mentioned there was Cassie Ventura. The judge didn't bail him because they thought he was dangerous, and those witnesses worried about what will happen when he does get out.
Well, I think that's a question to answer for when he does get out, because I think the judge made it very clear that he's not going to be getting out anytime soon. The fact is that, yes, he might have been acquitted of the most serious charges, and therefore his whole entire life is not going to be served in prison. We're still looking at a substantial jail term. So I think, from what we kind of saw from Cassie Ventura's, from her camp, they were at least pleased with some of the verdict, that, her testimony was at least well received. It wasn't a completely unanimous verdict, clear on all accounts. She was believed to a certain extent there. I think the fact is he's still going to be in jail for a substantial amount of time. So I don't think it's going to be necessarily a huge worry for those that testified until he gets released from prison per se. However, I think it's going to be very interesting to see what's going to happen when it comes to the showbiz world.
And let's talk about that, because, of course, you're a showbiz journalist. What do you think it will do for his career? And could we see more of his famous friends actually standing by him after all of this? Because many haven't come out in support. I think it was Kanye West who did. But what does the future hold?
Well, there's a number of aspects here because, of course, Kanye West, whilst he's still a very popular rapper, he still sells millions of records, he still sells merchandise. Of course, he himself is seen as a toxic figure within the industry, and I don't think he necessarily has the fan base that he once has. And also saying that, of course, we live in an era of post Time's Up, post MeToo. So when it comes to sex crimes in particular, they're seen in a very different way when it comes to what the industry thinks of people. It's not just a bad Twitter or cancellation. He is, for all intents and purposes, he is very much a convicted felon. And, you know, we've seen big names that have kind of been associated with these quote unquote freak-offs. And we've seen celebrities run for the hills. Huge names have been mentioned from the likes of Jay-Z, Usher. Bieber was not necessarily mentioned in the freak-offs because he was young, but it was a case of what has he seen, what has he heard. I think celebrities and people high up in the industry are going to probably want to avoid him like the plague, because right now his name is very much toxic. We've all seen the video of him engaging in domestic violence with Cassie Ventura. Her testimony in court has been heard or quoted around the world. So P. Diddy, when it comes to a comeback in a few years, I'm not quite sure if I could see the likes of Jay-Z or Usher ever collaborating with him again. And then we've also seen previous proteges like Aubrey O'Day release these huge damning statements against him. We're seeing a lot of female rappers, female R&B singers, female artists speak up against P. Diddy in the industry. I think, like Hollywood post Time's Up and Me Too, when it was Harvey Weinstein, I think P. Diddy has represented a real day of reckoning for the entertainment industry as a whole, because people see it for exactly what it is: people at the top taking advantage and using their power for nefarious purposes.
Entertainment journalist Josh Rom, a pleasure to have your insights. Thank you for joining us.